The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments has declared itself as a constituent assembly. This despite conflicting jurisprudence on the matter, requiring resolutions from both houses to convene Congress as a whole into a con-ass. To tell us more about this, we have Marian Enriquez reporting live from the Batasan. Marian, could you tell us how this happened?
Yes, Charles. The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments, led by Chair Alfredo Garbin, has convened today to discuss provision amendments or proposed amendments to certain economic provisions to the 1987 Constitution. Now, Garbin announced that the committee is now sitting as a constituent assembly. Almost 2 hours were spent debating whether the committee can now sit as a CONAS. Under House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco's proposal, Congress should convene as a constituent assembly and approve amendments by a 3/4 vote of all lawmakers, with the House and Senate voting separately. Albay Representative Ed Salagman said that no committee can sit as a constituent assembly, as CONAS is composed of members of the House and Senate in a joint meeting. If members of the CONAS are not sitting as legislators but as constituent members of the Assembly, then the voting should not be separate, but it should be joint, as they would be voting as the CONAS. Vice Chair Tony Petalbano also clarified that what they are doing right now should only be called as committee hearing that will propose for a constituent assembly to amend the Constitution. However, Garbin was firm that their body, exercising their constituent power to propose amendments, can sit as a constituent assembly. Meanwhile, progressive groups led by Bayan Muna and Kabataan party list trooped to Batasan to oppose attempts to amend the Constitution. They insisted that this will only serve the interests of the ruling party to forever stay in power. They stressed that there are far more important national concerns that need to be addressed, such as the issue on COVID-19 vaccine, mass testing, employment, and safe and quality education, among others. Charles, there are also some resource persons invited to today's charter change hearing, like Dr. Gerardo Sicat and Dr. Raul Fabella of UP Economics and former NEDA Secretary Ernesto Pernia.
All right, thanks for that, Marian. That was Marian Enriquez reporting live from the Batasan. Moving on to other headlines, the government is now in the final stages of negotiations to procure 10 million doses of America's Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. This was announced by Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babes Romualdez. The vaccines are set to be delivered in mid-2021, with the option to purchase 10 million more doses in the future. Romualdez also welcomed the support of ICTSI under Enrique Razon, who pledged to cover the shipment and distribution costs of the vaccines from the facility in Spain to the Philippines. New data from Sinovac's clinical trials in Brazil showed a 50.4% efficacy rate for the vaccine. That's barely enough for regulatory approval and significantly lower than the 78% efficacy rate mentioned by Brazilian researchers last week. This is a major blow to Brazil's vaccination plans, as the Chinese vaccine is one of only 2 brands that the government has lined up to begin immunization soon. Scientists revealed that the 78% efficacy rate previously mentioned included patients who still got infected with the virus, albeit mild enough that they did not require hospitalization. Some officials say the design of the Brazilian study, which focused on frontline workers during a severe outbreak, makes it impossible to compare results with other trials. And yet, COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna yielded 95% efficacy rates during similar pivotal late-stage trials. While the entire world is fixated on developing a vaccine, Shanghai Henlius Biotech is working on a cure for the coronavirus disease. Company CEO Zhang Wenji talked about their plans with Tom McKenzie on Bloomberg Markets Asia.
We got the clinical trial approval from the US FDA, and we are at stage of collaborating with the US government to initiating the antibody trials for the COVID-19. The drug itself is going to be different from the vaccine, now the first generation mRNA vaccine, in its uniqueness to fight directly with the virus instead of to prevent. So it's rather a treatment for a more severe patients if they have the condition.
There have been some concerns about transparency around the stage 3 trials by Sinovac. I just wanted to get more broadly your sense of where we stand in terms of that process of publishing data for public consumption here in China and safety questions about the Sinovac vaccine.
Look, I think even you look at what happened in the US and the UK for its record-breaking approval of the mRNA vaccine, it only takes 9 months. Comparing with about 10, 15 years normally for vaccine development. It's under a very special circumstance for the government to take a special measure creating special regulatory pathway for such urgent medical needs. I think China is no difference. The government rightly to take special measure for its own vaccine development. I see there are some specialties, basically particularities for developing such a vaccine in both the US, UK, and in China. I think the government is doing the right thing.
U.S. President Donald Trump appears to be planning a defiant last week in office. Addressing mounting calls for his ouster, Trump says he's not concerned about the possibility of being removed from office by way of the 25th Amendment. This despite the Democrat-led House of Representatives passing a resolution pressing Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the provision to remove Trump. Trump says it's President-elect Joe Biden who should be concerned.
The 25th Amendment is of zero risk to me, but will come back to haunt Joe Biden and the Biden administration. As the expression goes, be careful what you wish for.
Trump spoke in front of a section of the Mexico border wall in Texas, a symbol of the stringent immigration policy pursued during his 4-year term. Touting the wall as one of his administration's top accomplishments, Trump clearly plans on running out the clock from his seat at the White House.
The impeachment hoax is a continuation of the greatest and most vicious witch hunt in the history of our country and is causing tremendous anger and division and pain, far greater than most people will ever understand, which is very dangerous for the USA, especially at this very tender time.
Back here in the Philippines, the preliminary investigation into the death of flight attendant Christine Dacera has been postponed. To give us updates on the latest situation, Camille Samonte is joining us live from Makati. Camille, who actually moved to reschedule today's proceedings?
Hindi pa ako nakapatch.
All right, Camille, can you hear us?
Yes, hi Charles.
All right, could you tell us, Camille, who exactly moved to reschedule today's proceedings?
Charles, the Makati Prosecutor's Office rescheduled the preliminary investigation in the death of Christine Dacera on January 27. The PNP already submitted the supplemental complaint of the investigating officer, but they are still waiting for the result of the DNA analysis, toxicology analysis, histopath examination, and laboratory results from the Makati Medical Center. So at this point, we are still waiting for more information from the Makati PNP on whether they could supplement or they could submit the evidences on January 27. Charles?
Yeah, do we have any idea as to what additional information or evidence the police now has which they did not have before?
Charles, since they requested to reschedule the preliminary investigation, they just resubmitted the CCTV footage and the statements of the first 3 respondents who were detained in Makati Police. So Makati PNP are still waiting for, like what I mentioned earlier, for the DNA analysis, toxicology analysis, histopath examination, and laboratory results from the Makati Medical Center. So these are the other examinations that will be resubmitted on January 27. Charles?
Right, Camille, we have PNP Chief Dibold Sina saying that there may have been some procedural lapses as regards the investigation of this case. Is the PNP still insisting that this was a rape-slay case, or have they changed their tune at all?
Charles, the PNP is still insisting that that this may be a rape-slay case. Even the family of Christine Dacera is convinced that there is a foul play in Christine's death. So at this point, the Makati PNP refused to comment whether the evidences they have gathered are strong enough to really say that it is a rape-slay case. But the family of Christine Dacera is still waiting for the result of the re-autopsy of NBI, and according to one of our sources, a medical blood examination was conducted when Christine Dacera was brought to Makati Medical Center before her body was turned over to the PNP when her body was embalmed. So those are the things that they are still waiting that hopefully would help shed light on what really caused on Christine's death. Charles?
Thanks for that, Camille. That was Camille Samonte reporting live from Makati. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join Sean Yao later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app as you register for a free account at www.signalplay.com. So you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.
To be followed by Congressman and Vice Chair Noy Defensor and Congresswoman Franz Castro and Congressman Ed Salagman.